Good evening. I'm Stefan Freund, Professor of Composition at the University of Missouri School of Music. Welcome to the second concert of the 2021 Mizzou International Composers Festival, featuring the Mizzou New Music Ensemble and Khemia, performing works with composers affiliated with the Mizzou New Music Initiative. Please find program information in the description box below. Thanks to Gene and Rex Sinkfield and the Sinkfield Charitable Foundation for their generosity to the Mizzou School of Music, including sponsoring this week's festival. And now, New Music Ensemble Assistant Conductor Yoshiaki Onishi with MICF guest composer Chen Yi.
Greetings, my name is Yoshiaki Onishi, and I am Assistant Conductor of the Mizzou New Music Ensemble. Joined with me is Dr. Chen Yi, Lorena CRC Craven's Millsap, Missouri Distinguished Professor of Composition at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Welcome, Dr. Chen.
Hi, Yoshi. Good morning. And also, say hi to everybody.
Yes. Together with David T. Little, Dr. Chen is one of the two distinguished guest composers for the 2021 Mizzou International Composers Festival. The Mizzou New Music Ensemble is performing her Near Distance for Ensemble. And I would like to ask you a few questions about the piece. The first question is that the piece bears the subtitle, Lost in Thought About Ancient Culture and Modern Civilization. Could you please tell us if you had a specific ancient culture or modern civilization in mind when you composed it?
Thank you, Yoshi, for the question. The piece is kind of abstract. So there are many layers of meaning of the ancient culture and modern civilization that I have had in my mind. I was born in China, which has 5,000 years of cultural tradition. I also have gone through the Cultural Revolution when I was in China. I think that I have learned the importance of education and civilization in my motherland. I have also studied and worked in the States. I have learned music history and various styles and cultures from academic courses and daily life. I think that they are different, yet we have shared thoughts and emotions in a humanity way. These all are about the abstract meaning of my chamber piece, Near Distance.
That's wonderful. Thank you. The second question is, you composed this piece in August of 1988 while you were in New York studying at Columbia University. This piece being one of your earliest works in your catalog and looking back on so many compelling pieces of yours since then, could you speak a little about what your creative path has been ever since you landed this country? Has there been any source of creative interest that has remained constant, or conversely, are they constantly changing from piece to piece?
That's interesting. Since this work was written for Aspen Music Festival's Composers Workshop in 1988, it's one of my earliest works written after I arrived the States. I have learned so much from my teachers at Columbia University in the city of New York, also from colleagues and musicians whom I have collaborated with, actually, and many other people around me in the city. As the time goes by, I think that the cultural and imaginative resource and the cultural life around me have influenced my composition styles during the past 30 years. I still compose three types of music, actually. One is a kind of arrangements of Chinese folk music for different instrumentation. One is a strongly influenced from Chinese folk culture, yet completely in my own language as an individual voice. Usually written for Western or instrumentation or that kind of mixed instrumentation. And then I have another type of music that is more abstract, which might be kind of a musical narrative or maybe some hidden language or forms or technique or philosophy from my cultural roots.
That's wonderful. And here's the last question. Please share if you have any specific aspects of this work that audiences should be listening for.
As you know, in my composition, I have borrowed extended performing techniques from Western instrumentation for Chinese traditional instruments. I have also done the other way around. So, therefore, you might enjoy the colors in the multi-layers texture in near distance, this piece. When you discover the performing techniques and styles that I have mentioned in the piece, written for flute, clarinet, violin, cello, percussion, and piano.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. It has been a great pleasure for the Mizzou New Music Ensemble and me to work with you. Now, here it is, the Mizzou New Music Ensemble performing Near Distance.
Hello, I'm Stefan Freund, the director of the Mizzou New Music Ensemble, and I'm joined with David Little, who is a guest composer here at the Mizzou International Composers Festival this week. Thanks for joining us today, David.
Thanks so much for having me.
So in a moment, the Mizzou New Music Ensemble will be performing your piece, Descanso. And I wanted to ask you a couple questions about it. First of all, the piece is about memorial markers. So in general, what do musical memorial markers mean to you, and how do they come to play in Descanso?
Well, so these pieces, there are actually three that are kind of in this series, the descanso series, and they're really about meditative spaces. So they're compared to a lot of my music, which is very active and very visceral and rhythmic. These are very open and have a floating quality to them. And the idea is that as an audience member, you can go into this space, and it is kind of functioning as a space for meditation, for reflection, and for memorialization. And they all came out of times when I was sort of in need of those spaces personally. And so I wrote them in part for myself, to be able to have those kinds of experiences which I needed. And then, of course, as an artist, when you do that, it's always wonderful if that resonates with other people, you know, and that can be something for others as well.
A big part of the piece is that the players play auxiliary percussion instruments, crotales and wind chimes. How does that work to expand the instrumentation of the group and help capture this idea of memorial and waiting?
Well, chimes, I think, have, I think of chimes when I think of spiritual things. And I think the ringing nature of crotales and of the chimes, I think, is part of it. Probably something I was thinking subconsciously at the time. I think also in the case of this piece of waiting, and actually in the first piece in the series, Descanso After Omega, there is a kind of immersive quality to the works in that when they're performed live, the ensembles are surrounding the audience. So in a live setting, you would have two of the players in the back of the house, two of the players in the front of the house, and then one of the percussionists on stage, and so that the sound kind of envelops you. So I don't know if we're recording it in surround sound or not, but that would be, you know, the I guess closest digital equivalent. And there's something, you know, I think the sound of a chime the natural decay of a chime is something I find really moving and puts me in a space of meditation and puts me in a space of this kind of sense of letting go of something. That you can trace the sound and you can follow it for as long as it exists, and at a certain point it's going to stop vibrating. But that's quite long. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where, like if you're recording and you're looking at a wave file, it's still going long after you can hear it, And there's something about that too, this idea of memorialization of those who have been lost continuing beyond their physical life.
Yeah, it's like dying away, but that memory, that faint memory
is always
still there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about how this is a piece in a series of works. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about its place within those other works?
Well, it's an ongoing series. So I wouldn't say that it's a completed series yet. There are 3 works in it: Descanso After Omega, Descanso Waiting, and then Haunted Topography, which was written for Alarmable Sound, I think 10 years ago now, 2011 or so. All meditative in different ways, and I think my idea for the piece is that eventually this will be a whole sort of evening of kind of installation chamber works that will, not be for an audience in a theater kind of setting, but will be for audiences lying on the floor or something like that, and that the music can kind of exist in the air above the audience. And they're all related to memorialization in some way, and all came out of moments where I kind of needed to work on that kind of material.
And now the Mizzou New Music Ensemble performing David T. Little's Descanso Waiting.
Hi, my name is Amy Petrongelli, and I am the co-artistic director of Khemia Ensemble. And I'm here today with the fabulous composer, Stefan Freund, who was kind enough to write Khemia the fantastic piece, Songs of Persephone, which you're about to hear. Stefan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Amy. Appreciate it.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your piece and what inspired you to write it initially. I know the text is by your daughter, Karina, so that's a fairly special fact about that piece.
Yeah, so in early 2019, my daughter was 11 years old, and she wrote 20 poems about Persephone as a young woman, about the age that she was at the time. And around the same time I got the commission from Khemia. I think it was the spring of 2019, and I can't really remember exactly how the idea came to me, but I knew I had this commission. I knew I wanted to write for you, write for The Voice. And I had this poetry laying around. I thought, boy, this would be just a perfect fit. It was very personal to me. And so I began setting a couple of those poems to music. And then the third one, actually, I didn't really have another one that I thought would wrap up the set nicely, and I didn't want to have like a 5-hour long piece either. So I asked Karina to write one more poem to me, and she ran off to her room for a few moments, and she wrote the third song, Flowers, within just a couple minutes, and she brought it back to me, and I thought, boy, this is perfect. And that serves as the third movement.
When you are dealing with text the way that you have in this piece, what are some of the things that you approach differently when you're writing for the voice, when you have that specific text in mind versus just writing instrumental music?
I find it a little bit easier because your mind starts to work very quickly with ideas. The programmatic elements are given to you, and so you already have some ideas about the sound quality, the color, the mood. And then I start to work through the text and speak it and sing it and kind of feel how it flows. And I also break down the text and structure it into stanzas, for example. So, okay, these three sentences seem to work well together, and then this will be the next section. And as I go through section by section, then that really defines the form. So, especially in these pieces, and in general, when I write with text, the text really creates the piece, and it usually comes to me quite quickly.
I know characterization within the voice is really important in this piece, and I'm wondering if any of the instruments also have particular characters that they play throughout the different movements.
Yeah, so the voice is the narrator, is the speaker, is Persephone as a young girl, approximately 11 years old. And so as you and I have been talking about, I think it's very important that the voice really communicate that idea. And she is a complex individual. She is a goddess. She's a young goddess. She's going through these different phases. She's changing. And that's one of the things I really love about your performance is you can hear these different moods and these different almost ages changing, going back and forth between being a child and looking forward to being a woman. And also the text allows for a bit of reaction with the instruments. So I decided to kind of personalize the instruments based on the instrumentation of my own family members. So the violin represents the mother, just like my wife Julia is Karina's mother. The cello is kind of me. It's this foundation, very, very level-headed, I would say. The clarinet has kind of a different role. It represents insanity or wildness. The piano is, to me, reminds me of my father. So again, it's this grounding force. So I was definitely thinking about these different personalities. So when you hear a violin solo, for example, that represents the mother, Demeter. When you hear the cello, that represents a maybe more masculine side to what's going on.
This is sort of an oddball question, but do you have, I always like to ask it, do you have a favorite moment in the piece, or is there a specific just section that just really every time you would get to it in your process you just loved, or that you love listening to?
Well, I can tell you that there are a couple moments that brought me to tears at a couple different points during your rehearsal and then the performance that I heard. They were both in the third movement. So, and a lot of people have reacted strongly to the third movement, Flowers, especially the ending of it. So I'll just say I think the ending of the piece is especially important.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Stefan. We're so excited to get to finally share this music with the world and get it out there. And thank you again so much for writing such an incredible piece of music for us.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for your individual performance and also for the fantastic group effort at Khemia. It was great to work with you all, and it's an absolutely brilliant performance. Looking forward to hearing it tonight.
Sometimes reason why I go down there is to get away from her insults, from her tantrums, from her complaining, from her insults, from her tantrums, from her complaining, from her insults, her tantrums, complaining, her insults, tantrums, complaining, 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 complaining. My mother is gone for days at a time. My mother is gone for days at a time. Sometimes weeks, sometimes months. Sometimes weeks, sometimes months. When she gets back, I work for her. well, not lucky. She'll stay for a few more hours. She'll stay for a few more hours. She'll stay, sometimes days, and I'll hear her complain about me. Excuse to go to earth. I make an excuse to go to earth. There I pick flowers. There I pick flowers. I pick flowers. I pick flowers. I pick flowers. 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 my only way to escape. treated in this strange way. Instead of feeling pain, I cause pain to the flowers as I pick them. Instead of feeling pain, I cause pain to the flowers as I pick them. I hurt flowers because I love them. I hurt flowers because I love them. My mother hurts me because she hates me. My mind is at ease though within the flower fields, unaware as I dance what the future world yields. My life has been a strange maze of emotions. My life has been a strange maze of emotions. My life has been a strange maze of emotions. The flowers calm me down. I put them in my hair. I put them in my soul. I put them in my soul. They tell me things. They tell me things. They tell me things. They tell things that my mother never told me. Some of the things they say don't make sense because they're just flowers. The only thing in my life that isn't complicated.
Hi, everybody. My name is Urjin Kong, and I am the violinist and the co-artistic director of Khemia Ensemble. And I have with me Dr. Phil Sink. What are some ideas and values that you are exploring in your music these days? Your bio already kind of introduces it, but maybe you can explain a bit more.
Well, sure. I can expand a little bit upon the idea of maybe bringing in social awareness in my music. I think that's really important to me. And starting with a concept first, I tend to be driven by concept and perhaps maybe a fake narrative or what have you to construct my music. But and more importantly, I think I've been trying to incorporate or try to write music through the lens of queerness. Actually, it's something new I've been trying that for a few years, but and that has been a main driver of, it helps me make decisions. It helps me construct a form that's interesting, and I really like to explore textures and timbres that are expressive.
And Phil, how does that relate specifically to Bite?
Before writing Bite, I actually went through a lot of self-reflection. I'm now like in a very stable place in my life, but there's a big long journey there, and I really reflected upon maybe some past traumas that I dealt with. Growing up in the South in the 90s, it was a time and place that was quite dangerous to be yourself. There were outward aggressions, people humiliating, bullying, and all that good stuff. That all was fine and in the past. But actually, what really stuck out to me were the really small things that people would say to me. People that were my friends, family, teachers, what have you. And those are the things, those little small things were the ones that really got under my skin. And there's terminology for it. They're called microaggressions. And funny enough, my partner now is an HR representative, and for the past year and a half, I've heard him give these workshops on microaggressions through the door, and it really kind of bringing this up, and it was like a kind of a conglomeration of ideas here. And I just started there from my own experience, and then branched out from that. Like how do other people interface with these microaggressions? How they handle it? I'm sure people that are from other marginalized communities, face it a lot more often than I do. So I, talk to people. You can look on social media. People will share their experiences with these. But essentially, words can bite, and that's how the piece starts and goes from there.
I really, of course, resonated with one aspect of your piece where you address origin. Where are you from? Where are you really from? And of course, as a Asian American, it really hits home with the perpetual foreigner syndrome. And it also reminded me, I don't know if the listeners know, but this piece, when Khemia first performed it, was without voice. And of course, then the vocal part was added later. And for me, I felt as an instrumentalist, having played both versions, that this second version where voice was added was so much more biting, pun intended, because it brought a level of literalness that I suppose the imagination for me upon the first performance, in retrospect, maybe wasn't able to bring to the fore. Could you speak a bit about maybe the first concept of the piece and what your considerations were in adding a vocal part to it?
Well, sure. I had a narrative in mind throughout the construction of the piece, but I wanted to really stay close to the concept at hand. And it was very unusual for me for my own process to add words later, but it was there the entire time. There were moments where I was mimicking speech patterns, and I was getting that from those microaggressions that you hear later in the piece, and there were points in the form where it's a little bit more abstract. There's moments where it's sung. There's a little bit of left turns where parts of the piece is narrated, other parts are sung, and other parts are purely instrumental. But the addition to the words actually didn't take me that long because I already had them up here. And the rhythms were already set to text, actually. So it was pretty natural process to add the words to it.
Words can bite. Like mosquitoes. Secretly. Surreptitiously. Landing on bare skin. Digging their parasitic tendrils. Underneath the flesh. Bite. After bite. Now, these words come in many different forms. Like casual comments, questions, backhanded compliments, and unsolicited advice. In the next few minutes, we are going to examine several of these microaggressions, starting with the common example, where are you from? Here. Where are you from? The United States. No. Where are you really from? It is undeniable that the addition of the word really in where are you really from completely changes the context of the question to mean you do not belong here. Resigning to the inevitable of being seen, yet not seen, transparent, invisible. Let's look at several more examples. You look so You look so pretty when you smile. You are so courteous. You are so articulate. You don't sound like a gay person. You should smile more. Do you work here? You shouldn't eat that. Do you have kids? Why don't you have a girlfriend? Haven't found the right woman yet. Shouldn't smile more. You shouldn't eat that. Have you tried the keto diet? You speak English so very well. No one can measure the weight of words. The lingering stings may fade. But the accumulation of scars never seem to go away.
Nina Shekhar, thank you so much. I am Urjin Kong, violinist and co-artistic director with Khemia Ensemble, and it is a real thrill to be able to interview you today. And Nina, I was very struck by the first sentence in your bio, which I will read now, which is, Nina Shekhar is a composer who explores the intersection of identity, vulnerability, love, and laughter to create bold and intensely personal works. And this is so perfect because my first question is to ask you to expand on the ideas and values that you like to explore in your music these days.
Thank you so much. It's so good to speak with you today, and I am really honored to be working with Khemia. And you know, in terms of like my music, it's so funny that sentence took me so long to craft. I feel like it kept getting longer as I kept exploring new things in my music. But I think for me, what's really important is kind of using music as a platform to emotionally connect with people and build relationships. And I really think that there's something special about art, in general, and that we can really use it as a way of communication, but also like a way of communication that isn't always like language based. It's like this other level of almost subconscious communication. It's like a window into somebody's soul. And it says sometimes the things that people are too afraid to say out loud using just normal language. So I think in my music, something that I've been trying to explore is really thinking about, building relationships. And that means even with Khemia, working with all of you and building an artistic relationship. But then also, I really love being so personal and vulnerable in my music, so that also I feel like I can kind of connect with you on a personal level besides just an artistic collaboration. So I think in my music, that's really something that I've been trying to explore, of really thinking of these connections on multiple levels.
And with your most recent composition for us, Don't Beat a Word, can you speak about how the genesis of these themes came to be manifested?
Yeah, so this, I guess I call it a song almost, but I think that it kind of happened by accident. I was starting actually in a totally different place. I was kind of thinking something more in terms of, as you mentioned, I'm an Indian American, and by being first generation, a lot of the music that I grew up listening to was a lot of Indian music, whether it either be through like more classical Hindustani or Carnatic music, or like Bollywood, like the more pop music in India. That was a lot of what I grew up listening to, and I initially started with this drone that actually is still in the current song that you performed, which is this really famous song called Kabhi Kabhi, which is like kind of, I think Hasan Minhaj described it as like the quintessential romance song of like Bollywood. And like there's a very famous actor, Amitabh Bachchan, and he's like, I think this was from like the 80s or something, and he's like a poet. It's something about that, and he's trying to like really like be suave with this woman. So I kind of took that song and I put it in a granulator, and I was really gonna just kind of have this sort of drone, really kind of like a meditative piece. And then, I don't know, out of nowhere, I think it just, maybe that backdrop and everything, it kind of just made me go into a different place. And I really love pop music, and I've been wanting to do more of that recently. And I think I had a level of trust with Khemia that I don't always have with other ensembles, and I really wanted to do something special for you. So I kind of went in this other direction. And the words of the song, the lyrics I wrote myself. I do a lot of my own lyrics for different songs or pieces. But with this, it was really about me kind of trying to figure out myself and how I present myself in front of other people, and how sometimes I feel like a shell of myself if I'm not in the right environment. And so a lot of the words are kind of describing just my own reaction to environments, and like in some of the words, me feeling like I think there's a line that says wash the grit and bleach the stains, and shrink the fit, my color fades. And I was really thinking of like me, honestly, on a literal level, me feeling like I couldn't be as brown, I couldn't be as Indian in front of other people, especially being an Indian American, having to present myself a certain way as being more American in certain circumstances, or being more Indian in other circumstances. So a lot of this is kind of about just me figuring out how to present myself and be who I want to be, regardless of other people's perceptions.
Absolutely. And I know that I speak for all members of Khemia when I say that your courage to be vulnerable, to speak about intensely personal issues, and to extend that bridge allowed us as a group, and I think also as individuals, to explore those own themes. And in that regard, during this time of COVID, during this time of intense destabilization, was extremely restorative. So I want to thank you so much for giving this gift to us, to Khemia, and for your beauty in your musical sound world.
Oh,
Nina.
thank you so much.
shh, shh, shh.